Good afternoon, everyone. Welcome to the Spreadsheets 101 for educators featuring Google Sheets. This session is a part of a free webinar series offered every week or two by the Stark Portage Area Computer Consortium, or SPARC for short. SPARC is an information technology center in Northeast Ohio, and we support about 30 school districts. However, this webinar is open to everyone, and we would like to welcome all people who have joined us live today or are watching the recording in the future. My name is Anthony Luscre, and I'm a technology integration specialist at SPARC, and I will be your presenter for this session today. All of the information for today's webinar can be found at http://tiny.cc/spark208. That's SPARCC208. tiny.cc/spark208. And I would encourage you to go to that site if you have not already done so. That link will take you out to our technology integration website, where you will find all the resources for today's session, including the live video stream, help guides, live session chat document, session evaluation, and a quiz to take to earn a certificate of attendance for 1 contact hour after you've completed watching the webinar. While you're there, please be sure to also check out our professional development schedule of upcoming events, recorded trainings of past webinars, and sign up for our Sparklines newsletter to always stay up to date with the latest tech integration information. And finally, if you need to get in touch with either myself or Eric, you can find our contact information under the contact menu link. Back to today's presentation, Spreadsheets 101 for educators. We're going to start with some very basic things today. I have a guide that I'm going to pretty much be following, so if you'd like to bring up the guide, or you're welcome to do that also. And we're going to start off with a complete blank spreadsheet and talk a little bit about the various parts of a spreadsheet. Just as in most of our productivity tools, we have a menu across the top, a set of icons that we can utilize to do other operations. And then on a spreadsheet, we have a grid. The grid is made up of columns and rows. The columns all begin with a letter, starting with A, and continue on to ZZ, or AZ, I'm sorry. Rows begin with 1 and continue down as far as you'd like. At the bottom of the page, you can see we have some tabs. That shows you that we actually have multiple worksheets in this particular spreadsheet, and we can change between the worksheets by just clicking on the bottom. So each spreadsheet can have multiple spreadsheets. They originally come up, and as you add each one, they're called sheet 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, etc. But you can rename them by going in and clicking on the rename to something that's a little more, makes a little more sense to you. The first one we're going to take a look at, the worksheet gives examples of what I've just mentioned before. Right here we have a cell in black. That cell's name would be given by its column letter and its row number. So in this case, this cell would be B2. We can also refer to that with what's called an absolute reference, which we'll be talking about a little bit later, but it is the same thing, B2, but it has a $ in front of the B and a $ in front of the 2. And we'll explain what that means. The typical reference to a cell is the default reference, and it is B2 in this case. If we look to the yellow area, we have a column. This is column E, we can tell from the top, and we would name that column if we want to describe the whole column as E:E. So there's a little colon in there, it's kind of hard to see, but it's E:E. So if I would choose this column, for example, this would be C:C. We also have a row here. Unfortunately, there's no nice, easy way to name rows. They have to be associated with a column before we can really describe them easily. So there is no name for that particular row. It's row 10, but there's nothing in the spreadsheet syntax that we'll be using that describes it. If you look to the purple square has a cell in the upper left-hand corner. If we click on it, you'll notice that it highlighted the top column to let us know where we were at. It's in G, it's slightly gray, it may be hard to see, and it also highlighted in a lighter gray color the number 2. So we know that that is cell G2. If we go down to the bottom corner of our rectangle, we'll notice that it is cell J8. Whenever we have a rectangle of contiguous cells, we refer to that as a range. So this range would be this entire purple area. So this is a range, and the cell range is given by the cell that's in the upper left-hand corner of the range, colon, the cell that's in the bottom right-hand corner of the range. So this would be G2 colon J8. And as I said before, you can't just have cells sticking out of the corners. It has to be a four-sided shape, and all the cells have to be contiguous with each other. The next thing we want to talk a little bit about is adding, deleting, removing information from a page. So we're going to open a blank page here. We're going to create a new worksheet. You'll notice that by default, my cell 1A is in a light blue square. That just tells me that is the active square. So if I click around the spreadsheet, you will notice wherever I click, it will turn blue. So if I click on a cell, I can start typing. So I could type in here my name. Now, whenever you enter contents into a cell, they're not there until you do one of 3 things. Either press the Enter key, press the up, down, left, or right key, or press the Tab key. So in this case, we're going to press the Enter key, and you'll notice that the cursor moves down to the next cell. That means my information is in the cell. If I type something in a cell, and I do not do any of those 3 options, I can simply hit Escape, and that information will go away. So if you do not save the information, you can press Escape to have it go away. We can resize our cells to fit the size of the contents by taking our mouse and putting it between the columns A and B, and you notice we have the ability to move that line back and forth. Also, there's another additional way to resize the columns, and that is simply to put our mouse between, just as we did before, but instead of moving it this time, I'm going to double click on it, and you'll notice that it automatically adjusted the width size to match the contents of my cell. So let's put something a little bit longer in this one. Let's enter so it accepts the data. Now we'll just double click on the top here, and you'll notice that it resizes itself to fit that particular size. Now, I want you to notice that whenever we're clicking, our cursor is actually an arrow. And there's actually 3 types of cursors we'll be seeing. The second type of cursor, if we click on our blue box with Anthony and move our cursor to the edge of the cell, when we move it over the blue, we'll see that we change the cursor from an arrow to a hand. We can then hold the left mouse button down and drag this cell anywhere on our page. So it has the hand, and that means that you're going to move the contents of that cell. You can actually move an entire range by highlighting it first and then grabbing and moving that range. So we can select a cell, move a cell, and in a moment we're going to talk about a fancy way of filling out the information in a cell. Okay, let's talk about some of the ways you can enter information. If I wanted Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday in here, I could type it all in, but the spreadsheet is smart enough to know that if I put Monday in, I probably want Tuesday below it. So if you notice, if I move my mouse to the right corner, right bottom corner of the cell, it's kind of hard to see when it goes on the screen, my hand or my pointer will turn into a crosshair. I will then hold the left mouse button down on that little box with the crosshair and drag my mouse down. And as I drag it down, you'll notice that it completes the series of days automatically for me. And it figures that out. It could also figure it out, for example, with MON, the abbreviation for Monday. Notice we now receive abbreviations for each of the days. So that is called autofill, or sometimes called fill down. And sometimes you also hear people referring to it as filling a series. So we have a series of events that occur. Let's delete these. I'm going to highlight the section. Now, when you want to delete something on a spreadsheet, you can simply highlight the area you want and press the delete key. When you want to remove a row or cell, it's a little bit different. We'll show that in a moment. So I'm just going to highlight Tuesday through Sunday, press the delete key, and it will go away. In addition to using our little autofill to fill down, we can also use our little autofill to fill horizontally. So you notice I was able to put the days of the week at the top of my column, something you may likely want to do, and then we could put the months down here or whatever we'd like. The spreadsheet will try and recognize the order. So for example, in this case, we have the numbers 1 and 2. If I highlight that, put my mouse at the bottom right-hand corner of that range, hold the crosshairs and drag down, you'll notice that it will continue to count for me even off the bottom of the screen. Let's try something with first and second and see if it works. And again, notice what it did. It did not figure out exactly what we wanted. So what it did is simply repeat the two, the first and the second. We can also give it a hint of what we want. In this case, I have a 5 and a 10, so the spreadsheet might guess the fact that I want to count by 5s. And this is a great little thing to do with younger students where they can count by a variety of numbers. So let's count by 3s real quick here. And you notice that each time I fill down, it adds an additional 3 to the column total. Now, in the case of Bob and Tom here, if I drag it down, it's not going to find Jim, Jeff, Jerry, or anyone else. It's just going to start continuing the series because it doesn't have a logical sense to it. But what I want to demonstrate here is in addition to copying and filling down information with autofill, you can also use cells that are blank. So in this case, I want to have Tom and Bob separated by 2 rows every time their name is there, so I can put in the information to the right of their names. So if I highlight both names and then go down and pick 2 cells, you notice now that I have 2 blank cells included in my range. I put my mouse on the box, changes to a hairline, I drag it down, and you'll notice now that it repeats all 4 cells: Bob, Tom, blank, blank, Bob, Tom, blank, blank. So it'll continue to fill in that way. So that's called autofill, and it's a very quick and easy way to get information into a spreadsheet that you might want to add. Now, I mentioned earlier that we can highlight something and delete it by pressing the delete key. We can also remove a row or column, and that's slightly different. To remove a row, let's say we wanted to remove the row that has Sunday in it, row number 7. I could click on it and delete. By pressing the delete key, that would remove the contents of 7, but if I actually want to remove the entire row, it's a little different. So let's click here on number 6, and just to demonstrate to you that I'm not removing just the Saturday, I'm removing the entire row. So I could come up here and I could click on the edit, and I could remove the row that way by deleting row number 6. If I want to delete a column, this little box pops up very easily when I highlight the column. I can click on that and I can choose to delete the column. Now, but I really didn't want to delete that column, so let's go back and add another column back in its place. So if I go up again to the little drop-down arrow, you'll notice that I now have a choice of inserting 1 column to the left, 1 column to the right. I want a column to the left. I click on that, and you notice it provides me with a blank column there. Now, we've been using Google Apps, Google Sheets today for most of this demonstration, but I want to mention a few things about other spreadsheet programs also. There is a slight difference when you remove a row in Excel or in Google Spreadsheets, in that if I would come into Excel and remove these 4 cells, the ones on the bottom would either come up or the ones from the right would come in. That does not happen with Google Sheets, so it does not automatically try and refill the area with other information. So it's slightly different, so you'll have to experiment with deleting contents of cells and deleting cells to see how that works with your particular program. But it is very similar. So now we have seen all 3 types of cursors. We've seen how to resize a row and a column. Oh, we didn't show you how to resize a row. Again, we put our mouse between the 2 and we can drag it, and we can make the row as long, as deep as we want. Also notice if I double click on it, It doesn't have quite the ability to do that just the way I want it to. And you notice that my text is at the bottom. I can come in and choose to have it either be at the top of the box, the middle, or the bottom. So let's put it at the top for right now. And it really does not affect what we're doing with it in that case. So we're just going to bring that back up and readjust the row. Now, the thing that people often say to me is, Anthony, there's all those little grids on there, but when I go to print this, the grids never print. So if we want the cell borders to print, we need to highlight them and actually format them so they'll print. In this case, we can go up here to the little icon on the menu bar, choose borders, and it says, what type of border you want? I want all the borders. So I can simply click on that, and you notice now that it will be there. There's also a little border color over here where I can change the colors of the borders if I wanted them red. And I can also change the border style if I wanted it to be dashed, etc. So we have some control over the border colors and styles that it's filled out in. Another thing people often ask is, why do the A, B, C, D, and the 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 not print? Well, those are just part of the spreadsheet program itself. The actual data is all contained within this area. And there's a nice little trick you want to remember. Whenever you want to work on something, you have to highlight it first. If you want to make a change to the entire worksheet, you click on the cell that's above the 1 and to the left of the A. I call it sort of the little magic blank cell in the upper left-hand corner. When I click on that, you notice that it highlighted in blue the entire worksheet. So I could come in here now and make a change to the fonts, and it would change all the fonts on the page. I could come in here and make a change to the borders, and it would change all of the borders on the page. So as you notice, when I go in here and make any change, when I have the whole screen selected, it will make those changes to everything. So again, that's the little cell in the upper left-hand corner that has no number or letter on it. That selects the entire page. Next thing you want to talk a little bit about is entering some formulas. Let's do some real work with our process here. So I have a sheet I've already started here with some formulas in it. And I've just put a formula here just to show you what happened. I have a 1 and a 2. And my formulas actually would be here, but I've covered it up in black so you don't see it for right now. And you might guess that if my result is 3, my formula must obviously be add this cell plus this cell. So we'll remove the black and reveal that we have, in fact, the number 3 there. Now you notice we don't see the formula itself. We see that number 3 is there. To see the formula, if we click on the cell that has the data in it, we can go up and look at the editing bar. And I have not mentioned the editing bar so far, but it is the bar that is directly above the column letters. This shows you what the contents of that cell are. So if I click away again, you'll notice that turns back to 3. I don't see the formula. I only see the result of the formula. Now I can choose under View to turn on the formulas, and I would see the formulas instead of the results. It's very uncommon that you want that, but it might be something you want. Now you notice real quick, when we look at our formula starts with an equals. All operations of formulas and functions in spreadsheets start with the equal sign. So anytime the spreadsheet sees an equals, it automatically inserts that equals and assumes that I want to start typing. I can either type directly in the cell, or I can go up and type on the edit bar. So we'll type up there right now, and I'm going to just tell it that I want the contents of another cell. So I'm going to say equals A2. And what it'll do is it'll grab the contents of A2, and you notice it actually highlighted to show me where it's going to grab. So let's try this and change this to 3, and you'll notice that it moves it down to that area. I could also do it this way. Once I have the equal sign in there, I can actually click and then click on the cell that I want the data to come from. So I can click right here, and that will put A3 into that cell. So that's a simple formula and how a formula works. So let's work with a couple other formulas here. Now you could do all the formula on one line, including the data, or you can have the data on separate spots. You can also have the formula anywhere on the sheet. So here we did 1 plus 2, and we just laid it out with the formula below the 2. But there's no reason I had to do that. I could come anywhere on the sheet and I could say equals cell A2 plus sign B2, I'm sorry, A3, and there would be our result. So our result does not depend on where it's at on the spreadsheet. It can be anywhere on the spreadsheet. As far as the mathematical operators for the spreadsheet, we use the plus that time. If we want to multiply, if we want to subtract, we would use the minus sign. And you notice we're going to get a negative number in this case. If we want to multiply, we use the asterisk. Do not use the X. The X is not for multiplying. You need to use the asterisk. So once I do that, you notice that it multiplies for me. Division is a little bit different in that we use the slash. Now we use the slash that is the same as the slash that you see in a web page. We don't want the backslash, we want the forward slash. So it's the one, if you can't remember which one it is, it's the one that's on the same key as the question mark. So we put that in there and press enter, you'll notice that our information, it has divided cell A2 by A3 and resulted in 0.5. Now let's change this a little bit and let's change our data here. Now watch what happens. As we change our data, it will automatically change the result in this formula. So if I put a 4 there, it'll change 0.25. If I put a 3 there, you may have guessed that it's going to be a repeating decimal. And it just goes on and on and on and on. And if I want to see more of it, I need to resize the cell to fit it in there. It arbitrarily stopped at some level there, but it's a lot longer than I want. So what I need to do is I need to tell it how many digits I want to the right of my placeholder. I can do that by going up to these two little areas here that increase or decrease the amount of information after the decimal. So I'm going to say now that I want to decrease it. So each time I decrease it, you notice it is giving me a decimal value. Now, you have to remember that it is not rounding the value, it is just showing it in a rounded display. If I were to actually add this to another cell, it would use the 0.33333. It just would not use the 0.33. So even though it's just displaying that, it doesn't mean that it is exactly the total there. And it's not averaging it, it's not rounding it, it's just giving you the significant number of places that you choose. You can also display things as a fraction. If you go up to format a cell, you can choose a whole variety of formats for that cell. One of the very important things is if you want to put money into a spreadsheet, currency, or if you want to put percentages into a spreadsheet, you do not want to type them. So in this case, if this was $1 and $3, we would not want to type a dollar sign in front of there because a dollar sign, remember, is used for that type of reference. So what we would do instead is we'd highlight the cells and we choose the format we wanted to utilize. So we go up to format and we go up to number, and you notice that one of our choices is currency. So let's just click on that. You notice it automatically inserted the dollar sign, the decimal point, etc. Now, our result up here is still in a number value. So let's convert it also to currency, and you will notice that it will change to currency also. So let's change our formula to add those two together, and you will again see that it changes automatically for us. Now, if I wanted to do the percentages, let's select our whole cell here again, return it back to numbers. We're just going to go to plain number, and there's our plain numbers. Let's go back and let's divide this again. If I wanted this to be a percentage as opposed to a decimal, I can come up here and I can choose format, number, and then I can choose percentage as one of the choices. And you'll notice that now it's 33.3%. So it automatically not only puts the percentage sign, but it puts the decimal in the right spot. So you never want to add percentage signs, dollar signs, other types of formatting. Let the spreadsheet do that for you by using your format command, and then you will not have to worry about whether some of the characters might be utilized for other purposes. Let's still talk a little bit about copying and pasting information. I've got a few cells on the page here already to start with, and I just want to show you a couple things. The first thing is, remember, we can move this anywhere we wanted to, but instead we can also copy it. We could click on it once and go up to Edit and Copy, or we can simply right-click on it and choose Copy, or we can use Control-C, which won't be very exciting for you because you won't be able to see it on the keyboard. So I'm going to choose Copy from here so you see it. I'm going to go to any other cell, and I could, again, use Control-V, but I'm going to right-click, and I'm going to say Paste. Now, you may have noticed something, and I'll show you that in a moment here. This cell actually has a formula in it. So the result is 11. It says equals 5 plus 6. By the way, you can combine as many operations as you'd like in one formula. So you can have addition, subtraction, multiplication, etc. You do need to use parentheses, though, if you want to clarify the order of operations. If you do not put parentheses in, the normal order of operations of mathematics will take place. So in this case, we have a value in there showing 11, but the actual information in that cell is 5 plus 6. So if I were to copy this and paste it somewhere, you'll notice that it gives me an 11. But it's not truly an 11. It is still equals 5 plus 6. So let's say I really want this to be 11 in the cell and not equals 5 plus 6, because I don't want to make a mistake of changing this value at some point in the future. So if I copy that again, this time I'm going to right click and I'm going to choose Paste Special. Paste Special is available in spreadsheets to let you do things like paste only the value. So if I would paste the value, you notice real quickly that A, my formatting goes away, and B, when I click on that cell, it is actually 11. It is not 5 plus 6. It is actually 11. So notice the difference between these two cells. Now, when I copy, I have a couple other choices on Paste Special. Let's paste special again, and you'll notice that if I want to put the format back, I can just paste the format. Again, my cell remains 11 because that was what was there before, but I can paste the format. Let's see, I want to paste this format, so I can copy that, and I can paste my formula, paste special, format only. Now, I can even get fancy and take something as these two cells, copy them, paste special, paste format, and you'll notice it'll paste the format of both cells. We could do this for a whole row or column using the paste special function. There are a couple other paste special functions. We'll just talk about those real quickly. You notice that there's one that's paste formula only, so that will drop all the formatting and it'll just give you the formula. We're not going to worry about the data validation or conditional formatting for Spreadsheets 101. You have to come back for Spreadsheets 101, 102, and 103 for those. But what I do want to show you is something sort of interesting. So let's go back to our other page here real quick where we had our and this is my favorite thing I end up doing, is I end up getting so many sheets that I forget where I'm at. So let's go in here, let's clean this up a little bit. Let's delete this. Now I'm going to come in. Remember, I'm going to select this top cell and I'm going to format it. So I'm going to take out all the borders. And there we go. So I have Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, etc. here. But you know what? I really don't want them that way. I want them to be horizontal. So if I highlight those, copy, click on a cell in the cell where I want to place the information, right click, and then choose Paste Special, I can transpose the values. So notice now, instead of being vertically oriented, they are horizontally oriented. So again, highlight the cells, copy, choose where I want to put them, Paste Special, and this I'm going to transpose it back from horizontal to vertical. So Paste Special transpose is a real quick way to do things without having to retype them. And I'm a real big fan of anytime I do not need to retype, I can do it faster than typing. Our next section we want to talk about is some additional formulas and something. There's a special type of formula called a function. Now, there's some operations that we do quite often. Let's say we have a set of digits. I want the average of those digits. I could go in here and I could add them all together. So I'd say equals, and I could put in each cell. And let's do a sum first before we do an average. This will give us our total sum. And you notice that gives us a total value. Let's make this a little less confusing by formatting it as automatic numbers and get rid of the decimal points. So you notice that here our value at the very end is 37. And we look again, we see our formula in there. Now that gets kind of old real fast. So there's some shortcuts called functions. So instead of putting in this long formula, I can simply use a function. And that function I'm going to use in this case is sum. So I'm going to type in the word S-U-M. And you notice as I do that, it gives me a whole lot of choices. I want the first one. I want just sum. And then it says, what values do you want to sum? Now we know that we want the values here, so we can just highlight the values. Let's try that one more time because I clicked in the wrong area. We can just highlight our values, and you'll notice that they will automatically go in there. And remember how a range is labeled. A range is labeled with the first cell in the top right-hand corner, the last cell on the bottom, first cell in the top left-hand corner, last cell in the bottom right-hand corner. So in this case, even though they're all still in one column, you see we have C2 colon C7. We'll put another parentheses on that, and we'll hit enter, and you'll notice that it came up with the sum of all of these digits. Now that I have that in there, let's just change it real quick. And instead of using sum, let's try using another function called average. And by the way, these are not case sensitive. I'm just typing them in a capital format so it's a little easier to see. You notice we type in the word average, and you notice it gave me some other choices here. We want average, press enter, and it will give me the average of those cells. And there's a large number of functions. Let's use another function here. Let's use the count function. The count is a really simple function. All it does is it basically says, look at the range. We'll put our range in a different color here so it's a little more obvious. Look at our range and count how many of the cells are not empty. So let's take a cell out of there. Let's delete one. And you'll notice now that there's only 5 cells that are not empty. And if we delete the contents of another cell, we notice there's now 4 cells that are not empty. So count is very simply lets us count specific items. So when we add it back in, notice now we have 5 cells that have contents in them. Let's get even a little bit fancier. Let's change count to count if. And when we say count if, we still have to give the range, but now we have to tell it what criteria we want to count based on. So we're going to say we only want to count cells in that range if they are 5. So we'll press enter. And you notice we see that we have 3 because he has 1, 2, 3 5s. Doesn't count the 8, doesn't count the 9 because our count if statement says count everything in that range, but only if it's a 5. So let's change that to a 9 real quick, and you'll notice that it will change it to 1 because there's only one 9 available in that group there. So whenever you press equals, you can start typing in a whole list of different beginnings of functions, and it will automatically give you more information. So there's a whole list of different types of counting. Count if there's information in the cell, and so forth. It just continues to get more involved. Again, with same thing with sum, there's a large variety of different sums. There are hundreds of functions available, and not everyone's going to use every function. But the nice thing is I've given you a link in the document that shows you all of the functions that are available for Google Sheets, and another one that shows you all the functions that are available for Excel. Most of them overlap, and most of them work just the same. You can also come over here to help and tell it, click on the help, and you can ask it to see a function list. And it will give us that same list, and it's quite long, as you notice, and they have divided up by different functions. All these are all dates. So let's just close that real quick and go back to our original sheet. There's another way that we can do functions very quickly. Let's put some data back in there. So now we have all of our functions, and if we simply highlight everything in our range, we can come up here and look for, and it's off the edge of my screen because my screen's too small, we look for the sigma. That's the thing that looks like a large reverse number 3. That's the Greek letter sigma. And you notice that we can click on that. In the past, when we clicked on that, it would automatically give us a sum. So that's also referred to as the sum icon. But they've actually made it fancier now. In addition to sum, if we click on the little drop down arrow to the right of the sigma, you see that we can choose any of these common functions. So let's go ahead and find the maximum value in there. And you'll notice that it put the function in there. We'll press enter, and it shows us the maximum value is 9. So let's take that out. Let's do the same thing again, highlight our range. And you notice when we highlight our range, go back up to our sigma, we could put in the average. And it just puts this in for us automatically. So it's really slick the way it does it, and it's very quick and easy. And functions, additional functions will be shown in future sessions. I just want to mention about one function that is very helpful for text. Let's put in my first name. Let's fix this typing here. Let's go back and let's just delete everything to start with. And let's just return everything back to reset. Remember, I clicked on that magic little button up there that's blank. So I'm going to type my name in here, take the cap locks off. My name is Anthony. My last name is Luskery. Now, if I wanted to put those together, I could retype them in this cell together. But there's a function that does that for you. So if we put an equal sign in and start typing in the word concatenate, you'll notice it's right there. And notice what it does is it appends strings of information to one another. In other words, what it does is it takes multiple cells and puts the contents of those cells all in one cell. So let's click on concatenate, and just like in any of our other functions, it asks us, what do we want to do? And it tells us right here, it wants a string, 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 string. So it wants any of the cells we want. So we want these two cells. We press enter, and you notice that it has put the two cell contents together. Let's resize this real quick. A quick review. Double click on the center on the column, and it changes it. And there's my name. There's a problem with my name though. I might not like the way my name looks. So concatenate, it works very well to do that, but it doesn't put a space in there. So let's talk about that for a second. There's an additional way to concatenate information together, and that's not to use a function, but to use a formula. And that formula works this way. You click on the cell you want first, you use an ampersand, that's a shifted 7, and then you click on the cell you want next, and you notice this case it gives us the exact same concatenation by using a formula instead of a function. But what I want to demonstrate here real quick is we're going to come up and click on this and edit it. We want a space between the two, so we put in a parentheses, space, and then another ampersand. So anytime we want to include our own text, we have to put an ampersand. So if I wanted a comma, I'd put it in there between, we have to include parentheses. So if I wanted a comma in there, I'd put it between the parentheses. If I wanted a asterisk, I could put it between the parentheses. In this case, I want a space. So when I press enter, you'll notice that now my name is there with a space. Now let's reverse my name and put it with a comma. So let's come up here again. We have our formula again. Let's click on this cell that we want first. Put an ampersand in, put a parentheses in, put a comma in, put a space in, put a parentheses, ampersand, and then click on the second part I want, and it'll do this. Now, the reason why I'm demonstrating this is because I think this is something that a lot of you do. You manipulate data with you can manipulate data, and most people think of the data as being numbers, but it also works very well for letters. There's some special functions such as left, where I can get only the first digit on the left. In this case, it'd be the A of my name for my initial. Again, Spreadsheets 101, 102, 103, look for future sessions on those. Now, it was very easy to put those two things together. It's much more difficult to take them apart. Now, in Excel, we would click on the column and we would go up to the menu and choose something called text to columns. That process is also referred to formally as parsing, where we break information from one cell into multiple cells. Now, Google Sheets does it slightly differently. They use what's called the split function. So if I come in here and put equals split, I tell the cell I want to split, which is this one right here. Let's fix that first of all. What did I do wrong? Well, remember what I said before. If you look at this, it's not really Luskery, Anthony. It is actually a formula. So let's copy that. And let's paste special and paste in the value only. Now you notice that we do not have a formula in there. We have Anthony Komolowski. Let's go over here and we'll put in our split function. And you notice that in all of our functions we have a parentheses. And in this case it says, what text do you want to split up? Well, I want to split up the text that's in this cell. Next question it asks is, put a comma in there. And they call these arguments. So the second argument in this case would be, what is the delimiter? And delimiter is just a fancy word for what character is separating the two pieces of information you want to separate. And in this case, it is a comma. So I'm going to put the comma in parentheses. I'm going to press enter. And you notice now that it actually splits the information into two cells. You notice the first cell has the split function in it. The other cell doesn't have anything in there, but it's actually attached to this. So if I would delete the cell, the Anthony would go away. And again, if we want to remove the formula, we have to highlight it, copy it, and do a paste special, and that would remove it. But the split function is the way we parse in Google Sheets. In Excel, the way we parse is called text to column. So very important, concatenate puts more than one cell together, multiple cells together in one cell. Parsing separates cells out into separate cells from one cell. Now, it's very, very easy to concatenate. It is sometimes very difficult to separate, because maybe I might have a middle name, or maybe I might have a middle initial, or I might have something that's very difficult to separate it by. So when in doubt, always create two separate fields. So I'd suggest creating a first name column and a last name column as opposed to one column with both of them in there, because you noticed how easy it was to put them back together again. We're going to skip conditional formatting for Spreadsheets 101, but there's a little brief description of it in your handout. That'll be a Spreadsheets 102 option. And let's talk a little bit about sorting and filtering. I'm going to jump back real quick to show you what our professional development page looks like for our spreadsheets. If you haven't went there yet, again, that's tiny.cc/spark, SPARCC 208. And if you notice down here below, there's a whole lot of resources available. And I really want to point these out to you, because we try not to make these sessions just how to. We want them to be how to use them in your classroom. So I have examples of some spreadsheets here, and I'm going to open one of the spreadsheets called Romeo and Juliet. Now you notice that this is interesting, because this is a spreadsheet that has no numbers at all in it. So as I say in a lot of my talks, it's spreadsheets across the curriculum. You can design spreadsheets to work with every area of the curriculum, and here we're working with language arts. Now, if you have a book that has a lot of characters in it, and characters do a lot of different things, they have different characteristics, sometimes it's hard to keep track of them. So what I've done in this case with Romeo and Juliet, let's go first turn it off here so you can see it better. Now, because this is a file that is shared with read-only capability, the first thing I need to do to be able to edit this is I need to make a copy. So let's make a copy real quick. That's what you would need to do also, and then work with the copy, because you won't be able to change anything. And the way you can tell that real quick is on our original, you notice we had very few tools available. On our copy, we have all the tools available to us. So I'm going to click right here, and I'm going to remove this temporarily, and then we'll put it back on in a second. So we have the characteristics across the top, the characters down the side, and each character's characteristics listed to the right of it. Oh, that water's good. Okay, so if I wanted to find out information, one of the things I can do is called filtering. It's also often referred to as auto filtering. So if we click on our first row with all of our column headers in it, and we go up to the top where it says data, we go to filter, that turns on the filter. When we turn on the filter, you will notice that each of the columns now has a little drop down arrow on it. This is how we filter it. Also notice that they're all blue right now. So let's say I wanted to find out everyone that was a friend of Juliet. So I can come in here, you notice everything is checked, so I would clear everything and say, I only want to find friends. So when I click on this and say, okay, you notice that my list shrinks very quickly and everything under Juliet is now a friend. The information does not go away, it's just being displayed differently. And to prove that to you, if you look on the side here, you'll see that the numbers are 2, 4, 6, 7, 8, 9, 13. So there are some information that's being hidden from us. And you'll also notice to prove that that is being filtered, this is changed from blue to green. So now we have friends of Juliet. Now, the nice thing about auto filtering is we can keep drilling down as low as we want to. So let's look at everyone who's a friend of Juliet that dies. So we come in here again, clear this, just choose dies, click on OK, and you'll see now that we have 3 people that are friends of Juliet that die. If we come back and turn this back on again, say select all, say OK, we will now see all of the friends of Juliet. Come back in again, we could choose a different characteristic. We could come in and choose everyone who's a friend of Juliet who is a Montague. And you notice that there's only 2 Montagues that like Juliet, and that is Romeo and his father. So let's go back here and we're going to select all again. And you notice now we see all of the people who are members of the Montague family. Again, we can come in, select all, and now we will see everyone in the entire sheet. So we basically have our filter turned off on all of our items. So that's called auto filtering. And you click on the top row, you go to data, and you can turn on and off auto filtering. Let's turn it off for a minute and let's talk about something called sorting. So if we want to do a sort on this, let's sort everyone by alphabetical order. The first thing we need to do is make sure we get the entire section of the spreadsheet because we don't want to detach these names from this data. So I've highlighted it now. I'm going to right click on it and I'm going to choose sort this range. And the first thing it asks me is, it says, are there headers for each row? If there are, you certainly don't want to put them in alphabetical order. So we're going to say yes, they are. And notice now our sort by is changed from the letter A to character. So we want to sort by character's first name or by their name that's listed there. And we want to go from A to Z. And we click on sort, and you'll now notice the character stayed at the top because it was a title. And we have each of our characters in alphabetical order. Let's do another real quick sort here. Oh, by the way, just as in any other program, we have the undo capability. So let's undo when we go back to our original settings. Again, we'll highlight everyone. We're going to right click. This time we're going to sort based on a different column. And we're going to sort the data this time based on the family. Now, it's quite obvious that these families have more than one member in them, so we need to add a additional sort. And this time we now want to sort by the character's first name, and that will then give us the family name. And then after that, each of the characters based on their family name and their first name. So let's click on sort, and magically we will see all the caplets first because that comes before Montague, and we will see Juliet comes before Tybalt. And then when we go through the Montagues, we see Abraham comes first and Romeo is last. When we go through the others, we see everyone is in alphabetical order. So we can do multiple columns of sorting. The most important thing to remember is always to select the entire range. Do not detach any columns from other columns because that can cause a lot of issues. There are some special advanced filtering and other types of filtering that we're going to save for spreadsheets 102, 103. And then the other thing we're going to save for future are charts. So let's just quickly go back and take a look at a few of the other samples that I have for you and some of the other resources that are available. Again, this is at tiny.cc/spark, SPARCC 208. And you'll notice that you can go back here and see the presentation, but you can also see all the resources. Today's script that I was working from is under using Spreadsheets 101 outline. Below there is a whole section from Google on using Google Sheets, another web page with free spreadsheet tips and tutorials. And then I invite you all to join my Edmodo group. Edmodo is a tool that can be used for classroom use, but it's also very good for professional learning network. So I'd like you to join part of my professional learning network. And on that professional learning network, Edmodo is free. There is a group, and when you click on that link, it will bring you to that group, and that is called Spreadsheets Across the Curriculum. And I post material, and other people post material there often. So I really strongly would hope that you might choose to join our Edmodo group and keep up to date on spreadsheets across the curriculum. I have a whole other additional set of spreadsheets, and as I mentioned in the beginning, I may have given some tricks and tips for people that aren't just basic beginners, but just in case they did not learn something new, I have a few links near the bottom here, including Mr. Excel's YouTube channel. And even though it says Excel, it's also very good for any type of spreadsheet. I have something that's very, very high level. It's called C. Pearson Consulting LLC, and it has a lot of very specialized functions and formulas and ways to do things. So for those of you that are not just beginners, here's some information for you at the bottom. And again, all of these are also samples of classroom things. So let's just open one. Let's open one real quickly. Mean, mode, and median. As I said before, remember when you go in there, the first thing you're going to want to do is file, make a copy. That then becomes your copy. You are now the owner. You can now share it. You can do other things with it, but the main thing is you can now edit it. And the way this works is you just simply put in digits here. So I'm just going to put some random digits in. Now, you'll notice that because it's a spreadsheet, it is live. So every time I put a digit in here, it's giving me the total sum of all the digits. It's telling me what the mean is. It tells me how it figured the mean. It shows me here that it took the information from the sum and divided it by the count and gave me the mean. It also gives you the mode, describes how the mode is done, the median, the range, and the count. So as I change any of these, you will see, let's change it really drastically. You will see that all the information changes as we change each of these cells. And this is really nice because this is something you can do with your students, and they can see how changing information actually changes the results of what might have been a very dry lesson in your class, but in this case, it can be a very active lesson. Let's take a look at one last one before we close shop for the day, because this is something that's really good for those of you that teach primary school level. And that is lost, of course. Let's find it real quickly here. Again, back to our web and our link. We're going to go down to the one that says Magic Money Machine. Now, everyone likes money and everyone likes magic, and I'm sure your students in the younger grades might like this program. Now, I'm going to have to shrink it a little bit because it's not quite fitting on the screen. We'll just shrink it a little bit there. Okay, so we can see the whole thing. Now, you notice that what we've done is we've actually pasted pictures in here, and you can do that with spreadsheets. You can put pictures in the cells, and we've described what each of the types of currency is. And then we put in the next column the value of each. So a penny is worth 1 cent or $1.01, nickel, dime, etc. The next column is the fun column. This is the column where we choose how many we want. So you can use manipulatives or you can just guess a number. So I'm going to just clear these out for a second. And I'm going to come back. Oops, what did I forget to do? I forgot to make my own copy, so I cannot edit it, so I need to make my own copy. Sometimes it's good for me to forget because that reminds me to remind you. Let's shrink it just a little bit. A little bit more. A little bit more. There we go. Okay. Let's go in and remove the count of coins. And you notice now we have 0 number of items. So let's just pick some numbers. Let's pick 7 pennies. And you notice now that our pennies, of course, are making up all of our number of coins, and they're making up all the value of our coins. And it's telling me that I have a total of 7 cents. Let's add 3 nickels. And you now notice that we have 15 cents in nickels. And you notice now we have more pennies than we do nickels, but the nickels are worth more than the pennies. Let's put in 5 dimes and watch what happens. Now we notice that over half of our value comes from dimes, but about a third of our number of coins comes from dimes. And you'll see that at the bottom we're doing a running total down here. Let's add 3 quarters. And again, you'll notice 3/4 account for half of our value of coins, but only about 1/5 of the total number of coins. And let's put $1 in here just for fun. And notice we now we have $2.40, and almost half, maybe about 2/5 we have of the value from $1, but it makes up a very small fraction of our total number. And because these are live charts that I've created, anytime you change the data here, these change automatically. So it's a really good simulation to use with your students as you work towards that next generation of instruction that will hopefully help for that next generation of assessment, which we're all very concerned with right now. So again, just a little quick review. We're going to go back and give you some more details. I definitely invite you after you're done to take the quiz. Remember, all the resources are found at tiny.cc/spark208. And you'll see something that looks like this. And when you get there, you can come down and take the quiz, the evaluation. I'm sorry, let's stop there. Take the quiz to get a certification. So you take the session quiz, gives you 5 questions. You must score 80%, and it will automatically send you a certificate. We also really appreciate your feedback for future sessions. So we'd love for you to click on the evaluation link and provide evaluation information for this session. Again, if you'd like to contact myself or Eric Kurtz, you can find our contact information also on this page. And all of our materials are at ti.apps.spark.org. And this will bring you to a page that has not only our professional development schedule and our professional developments, but the recorded webinars and a large number of resources on Google Apps, information on next generation assessments, a whole section on web material, how-tos, I think you'll find useful to use with your students. And then at the very bottom, if you subscribe to the Spark Lines newsletter, you will receive bi-monthly notifications of upcoming professional development opportunities in our area and online. So we really would appreciate you partaking of these. I'd like to thank you very much for going through Spreadsheets 101. Watch the schedule. We'll be scheduling a Spreadsheets 102 and a Spreadsheets 103. I've already had requests for them. So again, thank you very much. My name is Anthony Luskery from Spark, and have fun with Spreadsheets. That's what I do for fun.